What does it mean to be the strongest? Is it pure strength, an unbeatable technique, an unshakable resolve, or maybe all of them at once? Most of the great shonen stories follow the protagonist's journey towards being the greatest or the strongest of their respective verse, overcoming challenge after challenge, taking down powerful foe after powerful foe, all to conclude the story with them achieving their dream. But what happens when a character has already achieved that goal? What happens when a character has now been granted the title of the strongest and now must deal with what comes with it? This very concept has been explored through many different mediums, from Superman to Saitama to Homelander, but there are two characters that I want to draw attention to. Two characters who seem vastly different, but have more in common than you may realize. Two characters who embody what being the strongest in their respective verses looks like. Of course, the characters that I am referring to are All Might of My Hero Academia and Gojo Satoru of Jujutsu Kaisen. I love these two characters, not only for their design and personality, but also what they represent for the stories that they inhabit. They truly illustrate what it means to be the strongest, and what that means for these characters is extremely fascinating. To analyze this, we'll cover three major factors that I think make Gojo and All Might perfect symbols of the strongest archetype in shonen storytelling. And speaking of symbols, let's jump right into the first aspect of being the strongest. The worlds Gojo and All Might occupy are full of evil and treacherous forces that would plunge the world into darkness if left unchecked. It is the job of those with power to do good things. As the old Uncle Ben saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. And as the strongest, that responsibility falls directly on both of their shoulders, transforming these characters from powerful men into symbols of peace. In All Might's case, this is in the very literal sense. He himself setting out to become the self-proclaimed symbol of peace in the My Hero verse. We learn throughout the story that All Might, much like Deku, was born quirkless and had a very strong sense of justice. He envisioned a world without darkness and set out to make that world a reality. After receiving One for All Might worked non-stop to be that shining light in the darkness across the world, using all of his strength to save people left and right with an even stronger smile. Taking this approach, All Might's very presence brought about an age of peace. Villains became more and more cautious about committing crimes, criminal organizations going into hiding or disbanding altogether because of his influence. To go against All Might is to go against a force that can change the very weather with one punch. This kind of peacekeeping takes inspiration from American comic book characters like Superman or Captain America, Boy Scout archetypes that inspire hope and justice. And while Gojo Satoru also acts as a symbol of peace in his verse, his method would be more comparable to characters like Batman. Instead of keeping the peace with a smile, they keep order through fear. Curse users and criminals went into hiding when the strongest curse technique combo ever conceived was born: the Limitless and the Six Eyes. There has to be something said about a literal child putting the fear of God into curses, criminals, and whatever Toji classifies as. The older he got, the stronger and stronger he became. Seriously, Gojo's abilities are so complex and wide-ranging that I would be here all day going over what this man can do and how it works. From teleportation, invulnerability, lasers, big purple grimace-looking destruction balls. Look, my good buddy Broken Ronin has really good videos talking about this guy, so go check those out. All you need to know for this topic specifically is Gojo is really that dude. And being that dude has allowed him the ability to be fearless, and that fearlessness has made him terrifying. So terrifying that the heads of the Jujutsu world shudder at the thought of raising a hand to him, establishing Gojo as the world's untouchable protector. This method of peacekeeping is very indirect, more of a secondary effect, whereas Gojo enjoys the freedom that comes with his godlike abilities. The symbol of peace element I find to be the most cliche. Using one's power to protect the weak is the starter character trait that every shonen protagonist has, but for these characters specifically, I find it a bit more complicated. They are looked upon more like gods, omnipotent beings who bless and condemn. There's a statue built in All Might's honor. They face overwhelming pressure to be the best. They are the floodgates that hold back the darkness, which safeguard not only the weak, but also the ones who would take their place in the future. If they fail, all hell will break loose. And unfortunately, that too is an experience they both share. Oyasumi, Gojo Satoru. The second element of the strongest archetype I find fascinating when analyzing Gojo and All Might is how their failures affect the world and how their prior actions influence their downfall. Both characters have witnessed terrible downsides to what their status brings. In Gojo's case, the current world of Jujutsu Kaisen enjoyed peace and stability until the day of his sealing. He was the strongest sorcerer, and because of that, many other sorcerers did not feel they needed to strive for more because Gojo was around. Protective aura enabled complacency among the community. If Gojo can't do it, who can? On top of that, every action he takes has wilder effects, like him not taking out Geto when he had the chance to all those years ago. Countless lives were lost because he, the strongest, did not take out his best friend. Who knows what could have been prevented if he had acted sooner? Obviously, this is easier said than done. It's not that easy to just kill your best friend just because you're the strongest. But because he didn't, one of the only people who could have done it, it is very likely the reason why things are the way they are now is because of that decision. As for All Might, things start to become more and more complicated, yet still reflect some of the same issues. For example, All Might's power also prompted complacency in the hero community. Where heroes are paid to protect, All Might taking care of a majority of instances cause other heroes to feel comfortable taking the back seat. The ideals of heroism became watered down amongst the Amiche society. This brought about characters like Stain, who would kill heroes he deemed unworthy. And Stain was just the beginning. The dark underworld of villains rose as a product of hatred for a society under All Might. His crusade against evil, while noble, was only a band-aid over the actual issues brewing in a superpowered based world, and in some ways made things worse. All Might is not ignorant to this either. As his powers decrease, and he's reduced to watching the world he swore to protect is ravished by villains, and his friends are left to pick up the pieces, the guilt and feeling of powerlessness takes over time and time again. This is what I find so interesting about these two characters and their status as the strongest. It is the narrative's commitment to showing Gojo and All Might's humanity through tragedy. They may appear as gods with unimaginable power, but at their core, they're still human with emotions and flaws. They may seem like it, but they are not perfect, and it is important to show that when creating the strongest archetype. Allow the readers to see the man behind the god. Without it, they become cold, plastic characters who we cannot relate to at all. And with that said, we get to the final and most crucial element to me for the strongest archetype.
The words I needed to hear.
Young man, you too can become a hero.
The third element of the strongest is one that Gojo and All Might most closely share in similarity: their commitment to fostering the next generation. While All Might and Gojo may have all the power one could wish for, they cannot be protectors forever. That is where typically the main protagonist comes in, the new blood coming to one day take over the task of being the strongest. Usually the role of nurturing the next generation is left to the mentor character. Your Kakashis, Master Roshi, Jackie Chan from Karate Kid with Jaden Smith. You guys remember that movie, right? That was a weird movie, wasn't it? Like, I feel like I liked it. I haven't seen it in a long time. I really just can't kind of wrap my head around whether or not I consider Jaden Smith a good character. I kind of do struggle thinking back on the movies that Jaden Smith was in at the time. Like, sometimes I feel like I have to give him credit because, you know, he's a kid, he's doing his best, you know, can't really expect too much from him. But also, like, in that movie in particular, it's just so very odd. I just never got into him as like an actor. Like, I always felt like he wasn't trying hard enough or something. I don't know. Maybe I need to rewatch the movie. But I just never really enjoyed it. And I also feel like that might be like Jackie Chan's worst performance ever, you know? But maybe that's just kind of like the nature of adaptations. Like, it's always just gonna kind of be bad no matter who they get to do it. And I also think Jaden Smith never really like evolved as an actor either. Like, remember After Earth? Oh, that movie is so bad. That movie sucks. I hate After Earth. Anyway, characters who are extraordinarily strong in their own right, but don't occupy the space of the strongest in their respective verses. Even Jujutsu Kaisen and My Hero have these character archetypes in Nanami and Aizawa. But Gojo and All Might occupy both. They are the goal for our protagonists in terms of power, the endgame status. But they are also the ones that help the character get to that point in the first place. What is important here in the third element is that by ushering the next generation through tutelage, they directly affect the first two elements, creating the next person to take over the mantle of the symbol of peace, and the one who will make up for the mistakes that they themselves have made and could not fix. Now, I will be honest, it's kind of hard to see this playing out well in Jujutsu Kaisen simply because of the nature of that story. Very gruesome, very bleak, and Gojo is just too godlike to be matched. He still tried to surround himself with strong pupils who had potential, but that didn't work out too great in some areas, so kind of up in the air how this story will end on that note. My Hero, on the other hand, is more direct with this theme. All Might passes his power over to Deku, dubbing him the next version of All Might. And the story of My Hero dives into what it truly means to be a hero and how Deku goes about finding that answer on his own. It is one thing to be all-powerful, but to know that power is finite, and that being one day surpassed is a good thing is just another facet of being the strongest.
君は五条悟だから最強なのか、最強だから五条悟なのか。
Narratively, I think the strongest archetype can be the most fun to watch in comparison to other archetypes in manga. Seeing them accomplish impossible feats and steal the show in every scene is something to behold. But I appreciate how All Might and Gojo take these character types and push them to new heights. It reminds me of Luke from The Last Jedi. He is a famous Jedi Knight who defeated the Empire, the past hero of the Star Wars canon, but that weight, prestige, and responsibility changed him, sending him down a path that no one expected but made all the more sense for his character. Being the strongest is not easy. It is a heavy burden to bear, and to watch that struggle, I think, is extremely compelling. Much like Luke, Gojo and All Might had to make very difficult decisions and have left the world up to the next generation for them to take over after they are long gone. Let me know in the comments who your favorite strongest archetype character is. But for now, that's going to be it from me. I will see you guys in the next one. Johnny Star out of here. Peace.